Welcome to the Scotty P podcast, man. I'm here today with a good friend I just met, Ruben Alvarez.
Yep.
Man, you just stopped by my gym. Was it Friday? Friday night class.
Yep.
And I had no idea who you were. Someone said visitor wants to come train, a friend of JC's. And I was like, all right, I'll be there. And I had no idea that you're like a celebrity knife fighter, coach, combatives coach, and longtime black belt. So
Yeah.
as soon as I realized like you were very talented, I could just feel like, okay, you know, kind of sense people's energies. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. I'm gonna let you teach. I was like, dude, please teach my guys.
Yeah.
And we work some sick head and arm stuff.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it, dude. And I'm glad to have you on. And I'd love for you to kind of like let the audience know kind of your background.
Yeah, so my name's Ruben Alvarez. Not really a big knife guy. Like I do more of the combative stuff, like the knife guy. Like I've trained with a lot of knife guys, but I don't consider myself one. I'm still learning that aspect. Like I rather just like, with the knife stuff, I rather leave it to the experts on that thing. It's like
Gotcha.
jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But yeah, dude, Ruben Alvarez. I'm a full-time law enforcement officer down in South Florida. I'm attached to a full-time SWAT team. Prior to that, I was a pro jiu-jitsu fighter. I've been doing jiu-jitsu since I was 15, and third degree black belt under Tom DeBlas. So
Damn.
yeah, been training for a long time, you know, and I've been on the comp scene for a long time, and then I retired on and went to the family business of being a law enforcement officer.
Hell yeah.
So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Well, dude, we were mixing it up Friday night class, and I was showing you some things, and we were just like, you're telling me about what's his name? Neil Melanson.
Yep.
And a lot of the old school guys you learn from. And then I showed you, like, to me, it's new high ground, which is this body wrap to the back. And you're like, oh, no, that's a catch wrestling thing
Yeah.
that I've seen before. And it's just so funny how everything like comes full circle. But one of my training partners, JC, he's been in the game a long time.
Yeah, JC.
And I know black belts that tell me that JC used to beat them up when they were a white belt.
Yeah.
And then JC tells me that you showed him the first back step to a leg entanglement back when he was a white belt. So
Yeah.
it's just crazy to me how long like you've been around like training.
Yeah, like I said, I've been training since I was like 15 years old. So like when I came around jiu-jitsu, it was still when, you know, MMA wasn't as popular. It was like called still NHB, no holds barred, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Like
Snap.
you know, the UFC was like the only big thing. We had Pride back then still. You had the Strike Force and then the WEC back then.
Right.
Things like that. And I remember the merger. I was like probably blue or purple belt when like the merger from WEC and UFC happened and all that. So I've been fortunate enough to train from the old school era and also the new school era of grappling. I think I got my black belt when I was like 21, 22. So I got it at a young age, you know, and I came around like some of the big name guys that you see today. I remember when they were like purple and brown belts, you know, and I was still like a blue belt, you know, like the Ryan Halls, the JT Torreses. Yeah, it was just like, I remember watching Arte Suave when Andre Galvan was a brown belt.
Yeah.
You know, like the old Arte Suave stuff, you know, so yeah, man, it was fun. It was fun.
Yeah, I had no idea, again, how good you were and how seasoned you were. So like we're scrapping and I go for your legs and you go cross ashi or 411. And most of the time I counter people with what they call the honey stick, where it's like you go like you're escaping and then you pull them right back in and you go ankle lock. But man, you just, on the 411, you lifted your hips and got the heel exposure. And most people are not that good. Like even black belt level, most people aren't able to stick with the heel. I don't stick with the heel with 411. Someone starts turning the corner like that and starts threatening that, I'm just like, okay, well, I'm going to look to turn my knee inside and chase the back, forget the leg lock. You know, so you start going for the leg lock and I was like, oh, I should have escaped. But now that I realize that you're a third degree Tom DeBlas black belt, I was like, well, it makes sense. This guy's in it with the leg locks.
Yeah, leg locks, you know, back when I can't believe I'm saying the back when I was day, but like when I was doing jiu-jitsu, leg locks were very frowned upon, you know, especially in the IBJJF community and stuff like that. My original instructor, Mike Cardozo, if you ever look him up, dude was nasty. He went to ADCC as a blue belt. You know, beat some Japanese high-level grappler and then went against Hoyler Gracie.
Damn it.
You know, so he's been in the game for a long time. He's been in the highest, you know, pillars of competition back in those days, and he fought MMA too. You know, he comes from like the BJ Penn, Dean Thomas era, So he fought both of them,
Damn.
and all that. He was in the Grapplers Quest super fights and things like that.
Mhm.
So he was very big on the leg locks. And,
Right.
I learned from him. He was only like 5'4", 5'5", but he was very stocky, but he was really good at catching the legs. So I ended up learning from him. And then, I ended up, stopping with him and then going into with Cyborg and those guys and Wagner Rocha and all those guys. And I was training with them a lot. The Pablo Popovich, where I met JC. JC was a
Mhm.
Pablo Popovich guy. So, I trained with those guys. Prior to even training with both of them, going further back, one of my first coaches, like I learned from the Valente brothers when I was a kid too, the self-defense Gracie Jiu-Jitsu with a guy named Carlos Villares. And then my first MMA coach and first like no-gi coach was George Masvidal.
Oh shit.
When he was still fighting in the back, before he even fought in the backyards.
Dang.
Yeah, so
He was already coaching back then?
he was coaching me. He was teaching 2 times a week in my uncle's Aikido gym. So I
Dang.
started with Aikido and then went to Jiu-Jitsu and then, started seeing that Jiu-Jitsu was cool because I asked my uncle, I was like, hey, can these Gracie dudes beat your ass? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to do Jiu-Jitsu, man.
Yeah.
So like
It's
I went into Jiu-Jitsu and yeah.
It's always funny. We kind of like a lot of people have stories like feeding in like from Aikido and like other like weird martial
Yeah.
arts where you're just like you look over and some jujitsu guys training. You're like, I need what that guy's doing because this ain't
Yeah,
working
man.
for me.
Yeah, so I did that and I trained with George. George showed me some leg locks too. He was with this gym called FFA, which is Freestyle Fighting Academy, where my original instructor helped start. It was him, Marcos, and David Avalon, who were really good. They both went to ADCC, and then they had Efren Ruiz and this guy named Ricardo Tejeda, and a couple other like old school grapplers. And it was like rivalry back then. It was just like FFA versus ATT, and
Yeah.
then you had the old school Armory, with like Hermes Franco and all those dudes. So it's pretty cool to see like the evolution of how jiu-jitsu is, because I remember when jiu-jitsu, it was hard to find a jiu-jitsu gym.
Yeah.
Now you go anywhere, you find one within like 15, 20-mile radius,
Yeah,
you'll find
yeah.
a jiu-jitsu gym.
100%.
So it's crazy how it's grown.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. Like someone was asking me earlier, one of your students, and I was just like, yeah, the white belts now are learning things that I didn't learn until I was a brown belt.
Yeah.
Or like moves I didn't even realize existed. I'm now practicing them as a black belt, and these 15-year-olds are already like naturally flowing into them. Like, oh, look, Scotty, I was figuring this out from here, and I'm like,
100%. Well, there wasn't fundamental classes when I started. It was just one class, and you went there, and it was all skill levels.
Yeah.
And like my first class, I got beat up by a girl. My dad's like laughing at me on the way home. She was a blue belt. Friggin' just beat my ass. So it's like now you have ways to teach now. It wasn't just before where you showed a move and then you rolled the rest of the rounds and things like that.
Right.
So now there's actual like structure and things like that.
Mhm.
Hey, we're gonna go over this week and things like that. Before it was like I just learned one move today and then learned a new move on the next day.
One
Just
move.
rolled till I got better.
That's funny. Well, man, so obviously we connect on the jiu-jitsu, but one of the main ways that we really started to link minds was so you do a lot of combatives training, and I did a little bit in the core. I won't get too into it because they've already heard the story, but yeah, definitely it's like a mindset thing where you have the skills in jiu-jitsu, but you're thinking about it wrong, and those things are life decisions when it comes down to it. I got to watch a little bit of it today, but it's like, man, yeah, you try to jump on someone's back and you mess up, man, it's over.
Yeah, jumping on somebody's back, you're not controlling the waistline or anything like that. They can access weapons. You saw that there is a point where dude had the back and other dude produced the gun and just started shooting them. We see that at least once every class.
Yeah.
We'll get high level jiu-jitsu guys where they don't know the whole task versus priority of what we're looking for in a weapon-based entanglement, and they're trying to adapt jiu-jitsu principles within a weapons-based environment. And you start noticing that you can't do jiu-jitsu when there's knives and guns in play.
Yeah.
Like you could try, but it's going to be very, very hard because it actually equals the playing fields by tenfold.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. No, I see that all the time because it's like something that you would get rewarded for in jiu-jitsu, whether it's like getting a takedown or attacking the leg, for example. Like your leg locks, man, you might as well throw those out the fucking thing.
Actually, the Ashis help. There's a few times where we've seen Ashi where the guy is able to draw from the Ashi to create the space.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so you can use the Ashi to create space, and as long as you know the principles and things to do before you go to it. But there's ways that you do it. Like my buddy Chris Woomer from Veil Solutions, he's blue or purple ball under Sean Applegate at 10th Planet in Atlanta.
yeah,
but
yeah.
Chris is probably one of the best like shooters in the world, and one of the best like dudes that's on the civilian side of doing like tactics and things like that and shooting and all that stuff. And he makes some of the best damn holsters I've ever seen. But he also does the combative portions, and there's one where he put Shigarami on the dude and was able to draw him, put 6 rounds center mass in the A zone on the dude.
That's cool.
The video's floating somewhere, and it's from my my mentor in the combatives, which is Craig Douglas. And that's how I got put onto it. It was pretty cool, Saw him do Ashi, drew a gun, fucking domed the dude up.
Right.
It was pretty dope.
Badass. Yeah.
So you could apply these principles in jiu-jitsu and weapon-based combatives, but it's just to know when can you and when you cannot.
Right. Yeah, because you take someone down and then they draw on you or get to that knife, man, you kind of just screwed up.
Or the +1 factor. You saw the 2v1, being on the ground, there's a huge disadvantage, especially when you have 2 dudes pouncing on you and they're working together as a team.
Yeah. So we start, when I got here, I showed up at the end. So you did 2 days, 8 hours, full course. And so they're probably doing like evolutions like all day, right? Like they're like learning a little bit in the classroom and then they're going out and trying it like back and forth. So I bet they were beat up today.
Yeah.
And so the first one that I got to see y'all do was an engagement from like a blinded side, right? So you said it 9 to 5. So
975, yeah. We picked that up from, I have to give homage to it, Craig Thompson, who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, or Royce Gracie, one of the OG Americans.
Sweet.
And he runs the Special Operation Combatives program. And what I like about the blind side, attacks is that it could happen. You could be on your phone one day walking around. Everybody doesn't, like I said in the debrief, not everybody has their head on a swivel 24/7. Like you need a break, man. Right. Sometimes you might get that phone call or something and you have your phone here and now you can't see from peripheral right side. Some dude comes up blindside, attacks you. What are you going to do?
Right.
Sometimes we get so hyper-focused on the phone with the inner limb coordination that we're grabbing that phone and then like not knowing what to do. Like you need to drop that phone and start getting into that entanglement right away because you don't know if he's armed. There's a +1. I know for a fact when I'm walking around, I'm always armed. So now there is a gun in the fight. It's my own or my own blade as well.
Right.
So yeah, the blindside attack, we don't see a lot too much, but they do happen. Now you have people running up and just sucker punching people. In the middle of nowhere,
crazy stuff
and all that stuff. So it's crazy. But yeah, the blindside attack is a good one. We like using that a lot from the 975 position. But like, yeah, it came from the Special Operation Combatives program. That's where I picked it up originally from, and then I just started tweaking it to my own thing. So like myself, I know another guy, UFC veteran Cole Miller. He also teaches combatives. He does a lot of the blindside attack stuff. So checking him out. The guy's 13-time UFC veteran. Black belt jiu-jitsu, really good with combatives, and he has a lot of cool stuff on the blindside stuff. Also the wall work things.
Right.
Like he has a whole curriculum for like a week on wall work.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Sweet. Hell yeah.
So yeah, you see that all the time now.
Yeah. Well, I think the blind side is important because, you're, like you said, you're not always going to have your wits about you when you're entangled. And then like one of the things that I liked about it is like you can really like mix and match the people that are doing it, right? Because now, someone's coming from behind them. And so it was like funny. I saw like 2 interactions where like the big guy started first and he kind of just like bear hugged him and then like pulled the dude on top of him to the ground. And then the dude was a jiu-jitsu guy. So he kind of easily like switched his hips, got on top. And then when it was his turn, the jiu-jitsu guy was like, I'm tackling this big dude to the ground. Like full on got him to the ground. And then that's when the engagement started. It was like a complete different thing. Yeah. So it's like, you might know jiu-jitsu, but what if that person got a body wrap on you and then it's go? Like, can you solve the problem?
You can't replicate how like attacks are going to happen because they're all going to be different.
Right.
We will see trends of them, but they're all going to be different. It's just like experiences. Your experience with combatives compared to mine. There's things that we could correlate together, and then there's things that are a little bit different.
Right.
It's just like attacks. It's the same thing. It's like, yeah, the jiu-jitsu guy just dove him straight down while the untrained big dude just used strength and then tried to pull him back thinking that he was going to throw him over. And then he was like, oh shit, fuck. And then falls right on his back and then the hip switch happened.
Right.
And then you had other ones where they just grab and just held on to people and try to like lift them.
Right.
And then as they got their wits about them and got the, started leg pummeling, they were able to get that underhook and that, bicep or wrist high and started implementing our system. So yeah, it was all different and from different walks of life and different body types.
Right. So that's what I really got to like with that interplay between, because you also had a couple girls in here. There was like a couple in here, so it's just like cool to see like the inner dynamics and then what they chose to do and how they reacted. And then you did the 2-on-1 drills, and one thing that I really liked was you called it a hook and
tie.
Hook and tie, and man, that's like that though, those mindset things where it's like I know I'm saying mindset, that seems kind of corny, but just like this idea of where you're just changing the tactics of the skill, where all the jiu-jitsu guys, they know what an underhook and a wrist grab is, but are they going to be able to know that's priority when we're trying to control the waistline? So it's like, yeah, you can know all the jiu-jitsu moves in the world, you ankle pick them, but then they're able to draw on you, like that's a huge gap in your training. Whereas you're promoting this, it's like a position, so it's very easy to learn. Whereas like a fucking technique or something, like they're not gonna be able to figure that out.
We give you principles, you know, and how to make the principles work to your body type and everything like that. Because it's not set on no way, it's a way. But we're just showing you a way to get into these positions and how to be safe about it. The biggest thing is like, yeah, I hate using the word mindset, but it's like it's doing that paradigm shift of, hey, it's not jiu-jitsu anymore, it's weapon-based entanglement. What is, like I picked it up from a good buddy of mine, Will Petty, who's a really good trainer. It's the task versus priority. What's the priority? I don't need you to get access to your weapon. I have to make sure that I have all extremities at least locked in before I can expose my weapon and start doing my job. Or at least seeing what we have. Is he unarmed? Is there equal armament? Is there unequal armament? Is he armed? I'm not armed. Like, that's the whole armament thing that we're talking about, is like, do I know you're armed? I don't know. I have to really feel if you're armed or observe that you're armed from visual cues. Like, hey, I see a bulge. It looks like a handle of a pistol. Oh, I see a knife. He has a handle sticking out from the waistband, or he has a folder in his pocket. These are visual cues that I have to see in order to dictate, hey, he is armed or I'm armed. But now let's say it is an unfair fight where there is 3-to-1 ratio, 2-to-1 ratio, that's, hands and feet that I have to control, and I'm just one person. So now you have to have the equal playing field. So it's things like that we don't really notice, especially from a jiu-jitsu thing. We're just used to, hey, one versus one when we're rolling.
Right. Yeah, right, dude. Yeah, I talked about this to one of my other buddies. But since a lot of them train for the competitions, they don't want to like use the wall, like, oh, let's reset away from the wall.
What about cars? Use cars.
Yeah, dude.
All my tactics are dictated by my environment and where I'm at. So like yesterday we were at a bar, and first thing is the bartender noticed my cauliflower ears, and she goes, hey, are you going to be trouble? Like, just joking around. I go, no, I'm not trouble. Like, I'm just here to hang out, listen to good music and, watch whatever hockey game is on right now. And she's like, oh, okay, cool. She's like, you find the UFC, all that stuff? I'm like, nope, just grappling guy. And my buddy goes to go to the bathroom, and this other dude comes up and just stands in front of a seat. So I'm assuming, hey, he's probably going to take my buddy's seat. My buddy's drinks in front of a seat. I go, excuse me, sir. Hey, the seat's taken. He goes, oh, my bad. I'll buy you a drink. Super nice guy. But his friend from across the bar, big, tall dude, big dude, like 6'3", freaking looks like a linebacker, and country fed dude, walks up, he goes, hey dude, don't kick my buddy's ass, please. Like, walks over, he goes, you see this guy's ears? And all of a sudden I'm thinking like, hey, in this environment that I'm at, like, now, even though they're joking around and we're all cool, I'm looking at these two dudes and I'm like, all right, these are two dudes that I have in front of me. What do I have behind me? I have a bar, I have glass, they have glasses in their hands. Can those be used as weapons? Like, what's my environment? Can I shove one in? I know one's a little bit inebriated, he's drunk. So I know I could shove him out real quick, put him against the bar, and then use the other friend as a shield. But then again, I'm also reading the room as well as like, it's two of them, but now he's got his big ass brother in the back and his other buddy who's built like a fucking linebacker wearing, a freaking hockey jersey. So he must know some things, and then they have two other friends I saw just go to the bathroom too. So now the only thing I have is my friend coming out of the bathroom. And on top of that, I'm like, holy shit, am I armed? Am I not armed? What do I have? Are they armed? So you're thinking of all this within the environment that you're in. So now I'm going to have to probably use bars, glass, his friend as shields and things like that. When in jiu-jitsu, we just have an open mat room.
Right. And
all we're thinking about is, hey, how am I going to catch this guy in a submission?
Yeah.
So.
man, thinking about the mindset and being prepared, man, one of the issues that we have at my gym, and I'm sure people ask you about this all the time, but it's like, someone comes into our gym, we're all on the mats with like none of our stuff, you know? And so I remember like one time I was teaching and like everyone just kept like looking over at this kid. And I already kind of knew the kid. I knew he was harmless, but they didn't know he was harmless. And it's just like this thing. It's like, man, anyone can walk in here and I literally have to stop what I'm doing and I have to address them. And like, it's like, cause if someone walks in here with a gun, we're all at risk here. It's, you know, I literally, people walk, I don't even know they're there. I'm like rolling and coaching and someone will say, hey, Scotty, I think someone, I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and it's like, yeah, it's just a huge risk factor that we always have to be mindful of. And I'm sure you know, like the guys that, like Tim Kennedy and the guys that he trains with, but his gym has a kill box where you come in and you have, they can see you, you can't see them first. And then you walk through another room and then you can get to the main training area.
Oh, which
but
is smart.
you can't get access to the room where all the kids and parents and
the
athletes
patrons are
right
training
until first you pass through like an office person first.
but that's because he has the financial means to do a kill box and
right
in a gym. Like, you know, for us regular dudes that, you know, financially speaking, if we have like a smaller gym, we can't afford to have a kill box in there.
Right.
But what can we do to, like, you know, try to stop it? You know, at the end of the day, when it's your time, it's your time. You know,
yeah, for real.
Yeah, I talk about this with my father and a bunch of my friends that we've all been through stuff, and we're like, hey, when it's your time, it's your time. We've had a bunch of close calls, but can I, you know, have little safeties in order to do that? So when I'm rolling and there's a bunch of guys on my team that roll at the same gym that I'm at, all our bags are in the corner by us, and my bag has my gun, which is easy access for me to go. I just do one zip, pull out that gun, and it's right there. You know, and, you know, sometimes we'll take turns when I'm rolling, the other guy's like sitting out watching, you know, and stuff like that. But every time the door opens, it's funny. All of us look at the door and see who walks in. We acknowledge, is it a threat? Is it not a threat? And then go back to rolling. It's something that you just don't turn off. You know, like even I know for a few times when we were rolling, like I would stop, you would stop, and we'd look and see like, oh, somebody walked by. Who was it? You know?
Right.
It's built into you.
Yeah.
You know, maybe for other jiu-jitsu gyms that don't have guys like us, I could see like, hey, maybe have like a kill box or something. Yeah, or something like that. But it's like, you gotta think of the gym that you're at. You know, Tim has the means where he could do stuff like that and have a kill box in the gym, and it's a very good idea to have and things like that. But like for guys like us, we have a smaller gym and things like that. Do we have options to have a kill box?
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
But I know a lot of dudes that, you know, they have at least like cops that train, and you'll see they'll have like their stuff near them.
Yeah. Well, no, I think I make that more of a priority. I think I might like put something on the door so that it like makes a noise when someone walks in, because I'll have music going, obviously.
Yeah.
And then another thing too is like sometimes, you know, the owner, he wants everyone to put the bags in the back because he wants it to look clean in the front. And yeah, I might have to tell him that.
But even for you,
keep a bag.
It's like a small little bag, you know.
Yeah.
And also have like an IFAC, you know, near a visual first aid kit. You know, have some quick clone, have a tourniquet, have that. I always have one in my classes. I always have one in my car. You know, even when I'm training, there's one in my bag. So, you know, things like that. But you could put that in a small bag that could just be put in the corner, and it won't even diminish the look of the gym. Things like that. Like, you know, I had mine near us when we were on the mat. It was right inside of that little bag that I had. That little tote.
Oh yeah, tiny little.
Yep. My gun was in there, and so was my blade.
Hell yeah.
So and nobody knew.
Right.
Only me. So, you know, it's things like that just to have there, and you saw it was right on the corner of the mat where we were at. Easily, I can access it.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, you're not gonna be rolling with the gun on you while you're in jiu-jitsu. It's not gonna happen.
Right. Well, man, so we're talking about how like things have changed like throughout the time that we've been training. And so, cause I went through the Combatives courses in like 11, 12, 13. And, I mean, maybe they existed, but I had never seen the little knives that we have now. Like the ones that you were training with, those are insane. And I've seen Katie selling them. I've seen like 3 different types. So you had 2 different types today. You had like one that goes around the finger and then it's like a little point. Then you had one that's like a grappler one where it kind of lines up with the index finger. That one was cool. And then I've also seen one that Katie, maybe Katie or other people, but it's like, it comes out like a hook.
Okay.
Like a karambit. And so, obviously I've seen karambits before, but when I was training, we didn't train with any of that stuff. It was all like, you know, a blade.
K-bars and stuff like that.
Right. And so, yeah, just seeing y'all work with those tiny blades today, oh, dude, it's like, that changes everything. You're like, man, someone picks you up, man, leg hook, boom, they're done. Oh, you seatbelt me? I'm putting this right in your forearm. And it's like, whoa. You can be way more dangerous now.
100%. Yeah, the blades now have changed tremendously. You know, you have not only just metal blades and stuff like that, you also have blades that are made out of like freaking 3D printed blades that could get through metal detectors and stuff like that.
Dang it.
You know?
Damn.
There's a lot of things that are out there now. You have the push daggers, you have clinch picks. So the small blade that I showed you was the clinch pick from ShivWorks. It's a really good blade. The other one with the hook and the dagger that I showed you that you can put in your index finger, that's the Sock P dagger. You know, that's one that I like to run a lot too. So I run both blades all the time, and they're great. And there's other type of daggers and blades like that. It's just what you want to run. I'm more of a fixed blade guy. I don't like running a lot of folders because it takes time where you have to take it out and open it. Some of the commandments, you have to like pull them out and make sure that the switch is engaged so you can unhook that blade. I like having something where I just grab it and it's already there. Fixed to me. So then I can pull on my dagger, I can pull on my clinch pick. It's right there. So yeah, the blade game it's a lot different now. You know, it's not the whole traditional K-bar that everybody has, or like the one that my dad had in the 80s from the Marine Corps, you know.
Yeah.
Fuck. You know, we're more discreet on how we carry our blades, not very overt where you can see it. There's still guys that carry over blades, but you know, for me, it's like I want to have concealment at all times. I don't want anybody to know I have a blade or a gun on me. I want it to be a surprise. So the first time they see it is when I'm pulling it out to, you know, do work.
Right. Yeah, man. The blades are nuts. And then, yeah, I mean, just the development of them and the new techniques that you're doing with them. Yeah, and that one, the one I think it was by ShivWorks. You said it was made by a black belt.
Yeah, Craig Douglas.
Yeah, dude. You ain't getting that out of their hand.
Dude,
you know?
He has a great video on it where they talk about how, because his blades are reverse blades. So he'll have double edge, like both edges are sharp, and then he'll have the reverse side, which is sharp. And he explains it for grappling, you know, lock and gable grip, hugging a single leg, you start cutting dudes on the single leg.
Oh,
you know, and things like that. So you have a lot of good black belt guys that are teaching now that are in the combatives, you know, spectrum or, you know, arena. We have Craig Douglas. He's a black belt, or Mikey Sanford, who's a good friend of mine in Mississippi. He's a black belt in ATT. And we actually used to be rivals competing back in the days. He's an Armory Daytona guy. And then you have Cecil Birch, who's a black belt under Megaton in Arizona, stuff like that. So he's great. As well as, I'm trying to think of him, Paul Sharp from SPG. Another ShivWorks alumni guy. You know, so you have a lot of guys within ShivWorks Collective, and we have a lot of black belts that are doing the combative stuff all over.
Yeah. So yeah. Dude, it's raining and I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I did want to say, yeah, what about like, do you carry like a flashlight or anything like that?
Yeah, I carry a flashlight. I don't have mine on me right now. But yeah, I have a small like mod light that I carry in my pocket. You know, I always carry a flashlight. I always have an IFAK, you know, when I travel, just in case, you know, like I always have my blades with me. I always, you know, carry my gun. I'll check it in, and then whenever I land, I'm, you know, go to the hotel, have my gun with me and stuff like that.
Yeah, the lights are awesome.
Yeah, flashlights are great deterrents. Like, you know, you flash a light in the dude's face, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And you try to regain composure, you're ready, freaking out, or you're blitzing.
You're right.
So flashlights are great tools. I love them.
Yeah.
Especially if you can't carry a knife or a gun, you carry a flashlight.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, just make sure it's a good one with a lot of lumens and candela. So you get, at least when you hit them in the eyes, you know, you start flustering them.
Yeah. All right. I've done drills where someone has a light. Dude, someone who knows how to use it, you can't touch it. You think they're like right in front of you, and you can't. You think they're right in front of you, but they're not. Like the light, you don't have any depth perception when they're hitting you with it. So you're just like you can't even grab them. It's insane.
Yeah, especially like your eyes are already accustomed to the environment that it's around. Now you flash it, you disrupt it.
Yeah.
And now you're like hitting the reset button.
Right.
You know, so yeah, there's a lot of science behind it, and it's crazy to see. Like white light helps a lot.
Yeah. So I'll get you out of here. I'll ask you one last question. What would be your advice for someone looking to get into more of this type of training? I know we had your 2 classes, and yeah, you mentioned that you'll probably come back through Dallas sometime soon. But if they're like, maybe this piqued their interest, and maybe they did jiu-jitsu because they thought it translated well to this type of scenario. But now that they're hearing this, they're like, man, I don't want to be caught off guard. What would be your advice for someone kind of getting into there?
It's the same thing like when you first started jiu-jitsu. Have the same open-minded mindset that you have. Don't have an ego. No matter, even if you're a black belt, like always be willing to learn. Take classes. Learn from all these guys. They don't have to be a black belt. There's a lot of guys that aren't black belts that teach really great combatives. When I got under Craig, he wasn't a black belt yet. He was still like brown or purple. But there's a lot of good dudes. You have, myself, Craig Douglas, David Acosta Jr., Cole Miller, Raul Martinez with Road Methods, a couple other dudes out there that are teaching combatives that are good, man, and they're doing the weapon-based entanglement stuff. And, I would highly suggest just signing up for a class and checking it out and just push your ego aside. Learn something new, learn something out of your realm. Don't get so fixated that jiu-jitsu is the end-all, be-all. That's how I would say for guys I want to get into the combatives that come from a jiu-jitsu background.
Yeah.
Just personally, when I first walked into jiu-jitsu, mentality. So I just want to learn.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the more things that you can apply that mindset to is like key, right?
Yeah, man, you got all these you got black belts like Chad Pittman, old school black belt. Pedro Sara guy, he's a sock P dude. You got Greg Thompson, a sock P, amazing. Craig, Cecil Birch. A lot of these dudes that are, really good black belts that went into the combative zone. And now you're seeing like, hey, it's working really well. So there's a lot of, there's more coming out, and it's crazy to see. And it's good to see that now jiu-jitsu isn't just being jiu-jitsu. Now we're branching out to other things too. Like Hinata Tavares, world champion. He's in the Shivworks collective. He's taken a lot of Shivwork classes, a lot of edge weapon overviews, a lot of ECQCs, things like that. And he's freaking awesome. But he was like, holy crap, this is something I need to add to my arsenal, especially to protect my family.
Right.
And there's guns everywhere, man.
Yeah.
Guns, knives, they're everywhere. So you have to learn how to defend it. It's not this old rudimentary that a guy just comes in like Michael Myers and just stab you, or a guy comes in and he's like, give me all your money, it's a stick up.
Yeah.
It's really high in intensity, short in duration, and violent in nature that, you have to prepare for that type of stuff. Tim Kennedy does a good job at like with the whole sheepdog response.
Right.
He's got his whole combatives thing, and those guys are really fucking about it, so good for them. And you have other dudes that are just really, really doing well with the whole jiu-jitsu hybrid combative program. Yeah. So I'm interested to see how it's going to take off. It's going to be like the evolution of jiu-jitsu, like how we talked about leg locks.
Right.
Now it's going to be incorporated with combatives.
Yeah, hell yeah. Man, and what do you think about like jiu-jitsu schools like throwing in like a gun, like not a gun, but
like a rubber gun,
rubber gun,
knife.
just to like simulate training for it.
So I'm a big believer in the whole context and intent of why are we doing this and how are we doing this. So that the guy who made it famous, I've seen a lot on Instagram, was in Shivworks with me. And that idea was brought up with the whole throwing the gun in the middle from Craig Douglas one day when we were talking about the tension of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and, combative stuff. And he goes, Ruben, when you get back to your Jiu-Jitsu gym, get the 2 most technical blue belts that you have them roll. And they're going to be technical as hell. Now just throw the gun in the middle of them, and you're going to watch them go from being technical to primitive in nature.
Yeah.
Once you start putting that stress inoculation in, like, hey, here's a gun, boom, it falls. There we go. And that's the only context that you get from it, is just to see that, hey, it goes from technical to primitive, like that.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. But there's no like training context or intent behind it of like, hey, what do we do here? How does this affect us in real life? It just shows us, hey, we can go from being technical on a sport spectrum to now being primitive on it's you versus me, and we're not playing for points or submission, we're playing for life.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where it gets primitive real quick, where it's life or death. Even putting that little stress inoculation of a toy gun Now, for us, we do what's called the evolutions, which we incorporate stress inoculation through pain. And what is it through pain? It's using a simulated pistol that gives marking cartridges that will sting you when they come in contact with you. So you will know if you're hitting your intended target or you're missing, because you have guys that are like, well, I'll just shoot them. I'll draw and just shoot them. Okay, get access to your gun. Try shooting me now. Well, now that I'm pinning the gun against you, where are you going to get those shots off?
Yeah.
You know, so you get to see like how it really plays out when there's pain involved. Same thing with the whole shock knives, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great.
Yeah, you could do the whole thing where it's like, hey, I stab you with like a little rubber knife, but now once you introduce a shock knife and there's pain compliance behind it, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You start seeing like, oh, that's where that whole tunnel vision kicks in play and things like that.
Yeah, well, your students were stabbing each other hard with those knives. I was
Yeah,
like, oh
man.
man, I don't know if I want to take one of those in the ribs.
Yeah, man.
And then there was another crazy moment where one of your smaller females was going against a bigger guy, and he ended up getting on top of her. But then he tries to pull the gun out, but his waist was like right in front of her, so she starts grabbing the weapon while he's trying to pull it out. And all your other students were like, watch your dick, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, you're on top position, but she has access to your waistline.
She could put that little pinky in there, set that trigger off.
Or
shoot
you
your
pull
whole
it
man
yourself
out.
on just like the chaos of it all. Yeah.
Or she's like pinning that gun to him and he's like focusing on the gun and she pulls out the blade and starts shanking him right away.
Oh yeah, right. Because he's got his own blade. And I like the unequal armament idea too, where like sometimes they had a weapon, sometimes they had a weapon and a knife, sometimes the opposer didn't or did have weapons, sometimes they had gloves on so they were punching to the head. And I like that idea of stress inoculation, where it's like, yeah, because you see this a lot where like combatives guys, not the good ones, but you know, they'll like go into theory about what it would be like if we all had bayonets on and like what's the best tactic and all this, and it's like all kind of a joke if we haven't done it. But here, just like, I mean, I think we kind of brought it up, your students brought it up in the after actions part, where it's like they actually got to go out there and like really test what you were giving them. And then you also kind of ran it like very like game based, where it's like you taught them something and then it was like a game based on that, and then there was like another little piece added to it and then another little piece, and one of your students was saying, he's like, I felt like I got a chance to work what I learned, and then it got harder, just a slightly bit harder.
Yep.
And so yeah, just man, that's how you change people. You know, you're not preaching to them from a freaking chalkboard and being like, this is what we do. We do these techniques in these situations. It's like, no, I showed you this, and now we're going to go try it against, I mean, what do they call him? Big Red over there?
Yeah, Big Red, yeah.
He had to go against some of the
Brett.
females. And it's like, hey, you're getting as close as you can to the real life.
That's why I preach about, I don't believe in women's self-defense. Women aren't going to be attacking women in the street. Women are going to be getting attacked by a dude that is bigger, faster, and stronger with them and has ill intent to produce harm to them.
Right.
Whether it's human trafficking or even, you know, rape or anything like that. So they have to learn how to be stressed out already within that training environment. So when they get out there, they're at least have some of that exposure. Like what I was telling them, and I picked this up from my buddy David Costa, you become the sum of your exposure. Mm-hmm. If you're constantly exposed to like hard, like freaking training, when you go out there, it's going to be easy. You know, just like when we train hard for competitions, when you get to the competition, that's when it's going to be easy. But if I train like very like shitty and like chill and not care, the competition is going to be very hard for me. You know, the harder you train, the less you bleed on the battlefield, things like that. You know, very cliche, you know, metaphors, but it's true. Like if we start building that exposure to them, when hopefully it never happens to them, but if it does happen to them, they at least have somewhat knowledge of like, hey, this is real. This is how I defended myself during these training courses. You know, do I have my blade on me? Do I have this? They go through that whole systematic checklist.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, dude, your girls look fantastic. I mean, dude, they're getting taken down. The dudes weren't being nice.
No.
They were like, this is jiu-jitsu drill. No, they're full on tackling them to the ground.
No.
And they took it like champs.
And we had Katie here yesterday beating up some of the dudes too.
Yeah.
You know, and it goes in the whole full circle. Like I got beat up by a girl like Katie when I first started jiu-jitsu. So I was like, all right, I need to start doing jiu-jitsu, and then did jiu-jitsu, and then guys, a lot of guys come and do the ECQC courses with Craig or do the skill builders with me, and you know, they start signing up for jiu-jitsu after and start learning how to like implement their jiu-jitsu. Or you had like Jairo, who's a good high-level black belt, under Marcelo Garcia. And he came through, and then this is his second time with me, and now he's doing like pins and traps to make sure they didn't access. And he was pinning dudes that had their guns out and things like that, and they couldn't get shots off on him, and he was disarming them. It was amazing to see because it was within a 6-month span, it was a big time evolution. And he goes, I started doing what you instilled in the task versus priority of like, hey, now it's not jiu-jitsu, do that, and things like that.
Right.
So now he implements that mindset when he's like rolling sometimes in jiu-jitsu. Or I'll roll with some of the guys and I'll be like, all right, now this one's not a jiu-jitsu roll for me. This is a weapon-based entanglement. I'm thinking like, hey, can you get access here? Can you do this? And then like when I'm rolling, chill, now I'm just rolling. Like with you, I was rolling with you because you're a good black belt. I'm like, I'm not going to do weapon-based combatives with you. I'm trying to survive here. I'm trying to just roll with you, get the whole sport aspect behind it. But I know when I could flip that, switch of the modality of the mindset of, hey, it's not training for jiu-jitsu now, it's training for, real life application of a weapon-based entanglement.
Yeah.
Especially for what I do for a living and things like that. So yeah, man, it's just, and you have to have fun when you're training for it too. But you become the sum of your exposure. It's going to be perishable if you don't train it enough, just like jiu-jitsu. After a while, you start feeling it. You're slower, you're not as fast. This is the same with the weapon-based combatives. It's like the entanglements. If I'm not training it either, I'm not going to be sharp enough to, apply it in real life.
Right.
So.
Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on. This was an amazing podcast. I didn't get to talk a lot about your SWAT team endeavors, but I have mad respect for it.
Appreciate it.
I'm sure they would have loved if we got into it, but we didn't have all the time in the world. Maybe next time you come down in a couple months or whatever, we could talk more about the crazy shit you've seen on the teams. And again, blowing my mind with tactics. I'm gonna put some of the clips that I got today in the YouTube so they can kind of see what it is that we're talking about. But I was thoroughly impressed. I'm happy there's people like you teaching people, weapons-based combatives.
Yeah, man.
And thank you guys for tuning in.
Appreciate it.